Thank you very much. It's a real honor to be here, and I want to thank the committee that selected Art Baker for this honor. You did a good job. And I'd like to congratulate all the other honorees, and particularly Sam White for the Humanitarian Award, another good Furman guy, right? There's a number of Furman players here that Coach Baker coached at Furman, and Art Baker has won many awards. He started out coaching at McCall High School, and then went to Newberry High School, and then to Eau Claire High School, which I'll mention a little bit later. And then he was a freshman coach at Clemson. That was, for all of you that don't know, there used to be freshman football teams at the major schools. And then Furman was wise enough to hire Coach Baker as the head football coach. And the program was in bad shape at that time. And one of the things that Coach Baker is famous for is making things better. People better, programs better. And I am one of those people. And I can't thank Coach Baker enough for what he's done for me. And these players can vouch for what they've done for him and what he's done for the programs he's been involved with. I mentioned the high schools that he was involved with, and then Clemson, and then Furman, the Citadel, and East Carolina. They're Carolina, so I guess we'll throw them in there. But he also served as associate athletic director and head of the Gamecock Club in South Carolina. I know of nobody that has been such an important part of all the major programs in South Carolina. But he has made everything he's touched better. And these players, former players, can attest to that. When Art, as I mentioned, won many awards, he was the South Carolina High School Coach of the Year a couple of times. He, the Furman program, after 1 year, the program in Art was recognized as being the most improved football program in the country. I think that's a great tribute to Art and to these players. One quick story. The program was in bad shape when Art came there, and he hired me as one of his assistant coaches. And I found out pretty quick that it was the attitude at Furman was not very good. One of the people here tonight is Robbie Caldwell, the offensive line coach at Clemson. And when I went to Furman with Coach Baker, it was Coach Baker and 2 offensive coaches and 2 defensive coaches. And Coach Baker said, "You're going to coach the offensive line and the quarterbacks." I said, "Coach, I've never coached the offensive line." And I said, "That's an odd combination." And so anyway, I coached the offensive line, and so in one of my first meetings with the offensive line, Coach Caldwell was a sophomore center in that group. And I was doing my best to get them fired up that after looking at film, most of the games that Furman had lost, and they only won 2 the year before, the offensive line, defensive line, the line of scrimmage was getting beat bad. And so I was doing my best to fire them up about that most games are lost right here in the offensive line and defensive line. And so I noticed that Coach Caldwell, I call him Coach now, had dozed off. And I said, "Robbie, wake up back there." He said, "I'm awake, Coach. I heard every word you said." I said, "Well, all right, where are most football games lost?" He said, "Right here at Furman, Coach." And that was true at the time, but again, Coach Baker made an improvement, and that team, who a lot of the members are here tonight, that team was recognized as the most improved football team in the country. I think it's a great award, Art, and just tremendous. You know, Art has helped so many people, coaches, players, and so many different people in his coaching career, and I'm just one of them. But my first time that I met Coach Baker, I was a student assistant, and I got the honor of being able to work with Art as a student. And I knew after meeting he and his staff, that's where I wanted to go coach from college. And Art, he hired me as my first high school job and my first college job. I owe this man a lot. And a lot of people don't know, but one of my sons, Bobby, reminded me of a true story that when I graduated from college and wanted to go to Eau Claire didn't have an opening for, I was certified in math and Art was certified in history. And Art had all PE classes at that time. And Art has reminded me many times of the sacrifice he made by taking 2 history classes and all the preparation it worked to do that. And so I started out teaching 2 physical education classes and 2 math classes, and Art went into the classroom to teach history, and he had the other 2 physical education classes. So thank you, Coach, for the sacrifice. And those of you that aren't familiar, there's a lot more work preparing to teach a history class than there's a physical education class. But again, it's an honor for me to introduce Coach Baker. And I just got a little bit of coaching just before I got up here that I only had a few minutes. I could tell you a lot more stories and a lot more about Art, but it's an honor for me to introduce to you my mentor, my role model, and my friend, Art Baker.
They told me I could speak from up here or down there. I said, if I speak down there, they won't even be able to see me. Thank you, Dick. That was really honorable. And Dick Sheridan could coach anywhere, anytime. And Warren Gizet was working as the head of the PE department, South Carolina at that time. And I got to know him real well, and he told me that he would begin to recommend to me people who he thought could be great high school coaches. And so Dick Sheridan was one of them. And after I met Dick, I was determined that I was going to hire him one way or the other. And Jimmy Satterfield and Jimmy Satterfield and Steve Robertson always complained to me that I didn't realize I'd done this. Just before the end of the first year, they found out that Dick, and I found out he wasn't making as much as the other 2 coaches, and was more, he had all the preparations and still wasn't receiving the money. So I went to him and asked him if I could take part of their salary to bring Dick's up to where he was the same thing as they were making. And if you knew Steve Robertson, that was a real job right there. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for inviting me to be here, being a part of your celebration, and I'm always so glad to see Brother Willie. He's keeps me straight wherever I go, and we have some similarities. We have wonderful wives, and my best to yours. My wife is not with us tonight because she has dementia, and she's in care in Sumter, and we were go back there tonight because dementia is a terrible disease, and I can't tell you what it is, but my wife is a wonderful person. And those of you who have come to know her would agree with me. She just always made people feel better, and always tried to do something for someone else. And she is just the same old fighter as she always was. And I can't wait to get back to be with her. And you know, when we stop and think about it, people make the difference in the world. They've made difference in my life. Robbie Caldwell, I can remember Robbie Caldwell. I was coaching him, and I see some of his teammates out there, and I can't tell you what a thrill it is to see those fellas again. Anyway, we would have meetings and have tests and evaluate our players when we were at Furman. And so at one of the meetings, Robbie's name came up, and Robbie, a little hefty, and his name came up, and several of the coaches said, he's too slow. And so anyway, we went on with that little argument for a while, and I got up and stomped my foot on the ground. I said, he may be slow, but he's going to be our center. And he was. And he has gone on and gone to heights in coaching, and we're proud of him. And these coaches here, I can't tell you what wonderful relationships it is for a coach and players. And I think every coach would agree with me. You just have such a wonderful thing. And then to see them now some 30 or 40 years later and know that the feeling is still there is a wonderful thing. I thank each and every one of you who I had the opportunity to coach. Thank you. And I'm sorry for my little physical shortcoming. I went to a spine clinic some time ago, and they told me I was playing tennis at that time, that I'll be back playing tennis in a few weeks. That was about 3 years ago. Didn't work. I was going to share a few things that happened to me along the way. I started out in Sumter. I was born and raised, and that brings me to the opinion. I have two brothers here tonight, Bobby. Hold your hand up there, Bobby, and George. Bobby has spent most of his life in Sumter, and except for when he was in the service. George spent most of his in the Marines, and his wife is with him, Irene, and we're delighted to have you. And my sons, Curtis and Artie are with us, and my daughter Kim. And they are about as good as you can get. A lot of the old friends, besides players, a lot of the old friends were fans in towns where we worked. And first time, well, I was thinking about the first time I ever knew anything about football. I went to Miller School in Sumter, which is on Miller Drive. You go through there, you can see it. And every day before school, all the guys gathered over across the street from the school, and we had a football game. And so one experience that I had was I was on one team, and the other team was kicking off. So I said, well, what do? He said, you run to that other road over yonder, and when you get there, you got to score. So they kicked off, and I got the ball and started one way, and then I stopped and went back the other way, and I beat the rest of them to the road, so we scored. And I thought that was really something. And then later I went out for the high school team in Sumter in about the 8th grade, And the coach, who had played in the pros, Larry Weldon, the coach said, I'm going to dress, you guys have been playing good, and I'm going to dress y'all for the next home game. And so we dressed, and after the game, my mother, and he gave us 2 tickets each, and so after the game, my mother said, she said, Arthur, I was excited about you playing, but she said, which one of the 20s were you? You know, you coaches would understand that better than the fans. But, you know, when you dress some guys down the line, you didn't have enough jerseys for them to wear a new jersey, so you had to go back and get one at a time. And that reminds me of my first game at McCall, South Carolina, which is about 3 yards from the North Carolina line over in Marlsboro County. Anyway, I took that job, and I enjoyed. I didn't have any assistant coaches. I coached them by myself, and on top of that, during the season, the principal coached the girls' team, and so he got sick, and he sent word to me that he was sick and would not be able to coach the game for the girls, and I would have to coach them. Well, I never coached any girls. We had some pretty girls, like most high schools. And so we went out to the game, and I, like always with the boys, I gave them a pep talk. And of course, what do you do after you have a pep talk and send them out on the field? You pat them on the back. A little low. And so I was used to hitting those old boys in their rear ends and to fire them up. And just about the time, and the principal is sick, but he's in the stands. And just about the time I said, oh no, I gave him this great talk and how excited he was to play in that. And at that time I said, go get him. And I got about this far from their rare part of their body. And then I realized if I hit that girl where I'm thinking I'm going to hit, I'm going to be gone. I better be looking for another job. And then when I was growing up, before I started coaching, I played at Sumter High School, and I played running back and quarterback. And during the team, you know, even now, during the spring, usually the coaches, high school coaches, will send their best players that are seniors off to a college, and in those days you could try out. So my coach sent me and about 4 or 5 other guys to PC to try out. So I went with them, and 2 of them were really, I mean, one was an All-American, Joe Curvin, and so anyway, we all went up and tried out, and after the tryout was over, Presbyterian Coach Brawl called each one of us in by ourselves, and he gave 5 of those guys scholarships. When he got to me, he didn't have any more scholarship money. And so one of our players was a guy named Joe Curvin, and this is what teammates can do for you. Joe Curvin had 2 uncles to play at Presbyterian, and he was the best player we had was an All-American. And so anyway, they gave him Joe went back and talked to the Presbyterian coach. He said, Coach, there's 5 of us that had decided we were all going to go to PC, and you've given 4 of us a scholarship, and 1 doesn't have one. And of course, he had to tell me that I didn't have one. So anyway, Joe went back in and talked to him, and the coach called me back in, and he said, well, I've changed my mind. He said, we are making some bedrooms up above the gymnasium. Not very hot, I imagine, But anyway, we're making beds up there, and he said, I have found one for you. And that'll be X number of dollars on a scholarship. And he said, when our guys go to college, their scholarship pays for their books. And he said, and he said at the end of that semester, we put a big box there and they dropped the books in it. He said, you can go to that box and get your books. So he said, that's another little scholarship. And he said, another thing, I've got you a job in the dining room, you can wait on tables. And so he said, that's another little scholarship. Anyway, as it turned out, I ended up getting some scholarship, and I finished college, and I never, that was my senior year. I will have to tell you that I got a full scholarship and had a good game. And yeah, okay. I would like to say that when I went to Newberry, my second job, and I was familiar with Harvey Kirkland. And if I had one person in my career that taught me every inch about football, it was Harvey Kirkland. And whatever things we did at Newberry, or whatever things we did wherever I went, it came from Harvey Kirkland. Our families became good friends. We'd go to the beach, and there'd be all these girls out sunbathing. Coach Kirkland's over there showing me how to play defensive end, where to put my left foot and right foot. Everything was important to him, and that was his football. And what a wonderful Christian man he was. And but anyway, it's been a pleasure to be here. I'm proud of all of the other inductees. I will have to tell you that I was able to recruit Charlie, and back in those years, I got to know his family real well. And of course, when he came to Clemson, he was all that anybody else had said he was. And one of the things he said, Charlie, about his sophomore year, somebody on the Clemson coaching staff, I can't take credit for it, decided Charlie was also a great receiver, and he could outrun them most secondaries. And so we started throwing the ball to Charlie. And Coach Howard, most of you remember Coach Howard. Coach Howard, it got to where Coach Howard said, "Give me Charlie Williams, give me Williams." And soon, all of our fans learned that we were either going to throw a takeoff pass for a touchdown to Charlie Waters, or we were going to run a reverse. Well, all of our fans learned it, and after a few more games, all of their fans learned it too. So they wouldn't. Anyway, thank you for having me. Thank you for having my family.